All right, good morning. So as Billy said, my name is Dan Kent, and I'm with Everpure. People you probably don't know or have never heard of Everpure. We're formerly known as Pure Storage. This year, we renamed our company based acknowledging the fact that we've been evolving over the years from just strictly a storage company to a company that's more data management, and how important that is in the age of AI. So we're now called Everpure. And I am going to talk about data and the value of data in AI and how that will help make your mission much more impactful. So when we think about AI, clearly you've heard lots of stories today already about AI, but most of us using AI on a daily basis, we think about it around workforce productivity, maybe operational efficiencies, how we use it, whether it's with chat or assistance. Then we have certain functions in our organizations that have been using AI for a while, classic AI around risk and cybersecurity. And then we've turned around some of those tools and helped us with our, whether it's citizen or customer experiences. We've opened up our digital front door with the tools, the classic chatbot, so the citizens can get a different experience with us, a 7x24 experience. But you've also heard where now AI is coming into the mission, coming into the business side of our companies and our entities in public sector. And that's really where it gets exciting. You've heard a lot of those stories already today, given some examples here, everything from in schools and universities using it for AI tutors and helping manage the student life cycle, to states and local governments using it to finding water leakages and things that they've never been able to do before without using AI. Certainly how they can help optimize traffic, which we could use in the DC metro area. And then, of course, in the federal government, you've heard cases in ISR and very use cases around the mission within DoD, but also within civilian agencies where we're seeing it being used for trade enforcement, fraud detection, et cetera. So we're using AI everywhere in our mission. But let me remind you that these applications have all been built within the last 2 years. You know what that means? They are version 1.0 applications. That just means we have a lot of work to do. We can clearly see the benefit. We know the benefit of AI in the mission, but we still have work to do with that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because AI does make mistakes. And I want to give a couple examples of how AI mistakes have impacted people's lives as well as the companies. The first one, of course, is Air Canada. They use a digital front door to get to their consumers. One of their consumers looked at bereavement fares, asked the chatbot, get a response, went and bought the airfare, came back to get his refund, and the company said, no, we can't give you a refund. That's no longer our policy. He sued Air Canada. He won the case, and Air Canada was found to be responsible for their chatbot's actions and had to refund the employee. Now, clearly that did not help them in customer satisfaction. Remember about 14 or 18 months ago when Google started introducing AI assistants into their search? That was interesting, wasn't it? It gave us some really interesting, funny examples, but it also gave some serious examples. A couple examples. One person asked about how do I make cheese stick to my pizza? The answer, of course, non-toxic glue, right? Another more serious mistake was when someone who had cancer was asking for dietary information, and they were given wrong information. And why did this happen? Well, because Google was using Reddit and other sarcastic websites to train its data. Looking to the last example, this is a state and local example. Angela Lips was a grandmother from Tennessee. She was arrested and spent 5 months in jail in North Dakota because her face came up in a facial recognition for fraud, bank fraud in Fargo, North Dakota. Well, in the investigation, they found out that Angela had never been to North Dakota. She'd never been on a plane until they put her on a plane to extradite her out of Tennessee into North Dakota. So clearly, mistakes can happen with AI. That doesn't mean it's the end of the world. This is new technology. We're still trying to figure it out. But rest assured, these were all self-induced mistakes. These weren't cyber attacks. These are self-induced mistakes. So how do we learn from this and how do we make ourselves better? By understanding the mistakes that AI can make. So taking a step back, we already heard it several times today. AI really is about context. You get value in the mission when you get the context, your business, your mission, into the AI. It is about how do I get my data to be used by AI. And we can really do that 3 major ways today. First is to make your own training, make your own models through training. might do that in DoD and intelligence agencies. Most civilian agencies, most public sector organizations, and most public entities cannot build their own models. It's too expensive. But that's one way of getting your context into the AI model. The other is to do fine-tuning of a commercially available model, or maybe even an open source model. More user-friendly, a little less expensive, but you still have to have, obviously, skill sets, and you have to have technology to do that. And then the last one is called RAG, and you've already seen, I think, a couple of speakers talk about RAG, retrieval augmented generation. This is how we take our own data sets and put those into a language that AI models can understand to help build the context. And we can do this on a regular basis. So these are 3 ways that we can get our mission context, mission data into AI models. All of these, though, 100% depend on having a data management strategy. And that's what's most important to get out of this slide. So we have to get our data ready for AI, right? And you've heard some examples of this. I gave you some examples of when you don't have it ready, right? If I don't have enough information, I give it wrong information, I'm actually going to have the AI come back to you with wrong information. Not that it was inaccurate. It wasn't even a hallucination. You gave it the wrong information, trained it. So we have to have our data ready to do that. What does that first mean? We need to make sure we anchor on the mission need. I don't need to give it any more data than what's important for that mission. The more data, the more capability of getting wrong information out of it. So we want to make sure we have identify where the data is, who owns the data, know that whether it's structured or unstructured, and have it available. Once we have that, we have to improve, curate that data, make it accessible to the AI model. How do we do that? We look at the nulls, the duplicates, the one-offs. We get rid of all of that, get rid of anything that is not relevant to our data set. We then start to look at governing. How do we start to look at how do we put access controls in place? How do we make sure that we have freshness of our data? How do we make sure that we can track in the lineage of that data? That all has to be built into. Once we do this, now we can start to transform that data. And if we're going to use RAG, we can start putting them into the vector database that the LLMs can start to use. So this whole process needs to be operationalized, because based on your data and the freshness requirements of your mission, you might have to do this process once a day, once a week, maybe hourly. So this has to be an automated process that you go through to make sure that your data is ready for that AI. Because clearly you do not want to have outcomes that don't achieve the mission that you're trying to put in place. So operationalizing this is about building pipelines that will help you go through the cleansing and the curation of the data, then through the transformation of the data, and then to make it available by the AI tools. So at Everpure, we want to help you do just that. It really is about having a data management strategy based on a framework, right? And this framework can be about unifying your data, whether it's on-premise or in the cloud. The data can be from whether it's file store, object storage, various types. We want to be able to take any type of data you have, normalize that so that you can then put it through that process you're talking about there, and have a single source of truth. We do not want to have multiple copies of data, because I have one application over here that is using a subset of my data set. You want to have a single source of truth. So having all that data in one enterprise data cloud that then you can normalize and modify to be used by that AI application is what you want to do. And at Everpure, we want to help you do that, start you on your AI journey by getting control of your data first, and then putting that data into your context, your AI tools. Thank you very much.